Welcome to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy is a veteran U.S. Navy SEAL, a former protective officer for the CIA Global Response Staff, founder and CEO of the Able Shepherd Program, a husband and father of 4, and a personal friend of mine. Now here's Jimmy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. I'm your host, Jimmy Graham, but you are BK. Able Shepherd 051. What's up, brother?
Back in the house. Great
back in the house, back in that seat.
The hot seat.
You set everything up and then shift over. This works out. All right, guys. Thought about this one a bit. I'm going to call this one 3 things that you must see. Maybe this is an update thing that we start doing regularly. I don't know. But when something rocks me like a couple of these things did, at least 2 of them, the third one's kind of fun, lighten it up a little bit. But it intrigues me to this level, and I talk about it to several people. I'm talking 20, 25 people in the last couple weeks. It's worth mentioning, so other people need to hear about it. And so, do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
I've heard of him.
So you've heard the name.
I couldn't, if he walked in the room, I wouldn't recognize him.
So little backstory. My man Gary Ellis in Texas. What's up, Gary? He sent me a book, maybe handed me the book, actually, while I was in town, I forget. It's 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Read it, we kind of exchanged some notes and said, what do you think about this guy? Had a good conversation. Didn't really think much more about it. Then saw some, more recently, saw some videos about him, basically in conflict at a university, I want to say Ontario, Canada. He's a professor. And it was about the pronoun kind of thing. You know, it's like if someone relates as it's a male, and what do they call it?
Him and her or something.
Yeah, like is it relate or they identify? They identify as a woman, you got to call them ma'am, right? He's like, not happening. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. They said, no, they were passing this. We must do this. He's like, I don't must do anything. I care about children. I'm not going to do it. That's harmful to children. The way he articulates it blows everybody away. Now there's people out, on protest out on the campus and all this stuff, and he comes out and just speaks his piece. The way he does it, though, gets the world's attention, and he hasn't stopped doing it, by the way. So, like I said, didn't give it much thought, and then I caught the interview. It's a GQ interview with Helen Lewis, who's very intelligent as well. She just believes things I absolutely don't believe. Like I put very little, whatever. I won't even get into that. But when she throws it at him, I really appreciate the way he responds. And I haven't been able to figure out, at least for a week and change, of what really related. So that's the thing I want to talk about. So I believe the thing that is so appealing to me is that he's just absolutely addicted to truth. Like, he will say things, and of course truth is what he believes truth, what she believes truth, whatever, but he backs it up so eloquently, meaning, A, super smart, like that's intelligent, to be able to draw on so many things. Like, some people know a little bit a little, some people know a little bit a lot. He knows a lot about a lot. You're like, wow, this guy is very intelligent, and he can just pull it back immediately. I think he does it respectfully. You never see him lose his mind. You can tell he's ticked. Like, she pokes at him, calls it effeminate. There's a lot of these things that tries to get under her skin, but the way he handles himself, I appreciate.
Well, and one word that I picked up on was absolutely believes. There's no doubt.
Right.
The
right.
2-second clip I saw, it was very matter of fact of,
yeah,
this is it. I've thought about it. I've educated myself. I've evaluated. Here's where I stand. Right,
and as you know, we have core values of honor, integrity, accountability within Able Shepherd. We're adding, as a side note, adventure. Right. If people spoke like he speaks with a conviction, because I think he doesn't come across as this is what you'll do. He comes across as, I'm starting here. Like, I'm not going to go home and think about it, or he would if it was a new thing. But I've thought about this more than most in their life will, because I had to hammer down until I would say it, that kind of thing. So this account for you, the words you choose, is worthy of notice. You know what I mean? Because people so flippantly throw out garbage, is that you can tell that every word is measured, because, and then that is a definition actually of accountability. You're like, wow, this guy, and it's strange because I almost felt for the guy. Like, he's so genius, he might be insane next year. You know what I mean? There's so right much bouncing around him. Yeah. Like, there's so much conflict in anything that he would ever say or do. Like, how do you make it through the day? I will challenge our viewers, our listeners, or whatever to watch it. And this is another reason why. As I've asked people in the Bible study, and even my wife, I'm like, she's not into that at all, really. She sees the problems going on. I go, can you do me a favor and watch this? Because you have to watch a whole thing. Just check it out. It's long. It's like an hour and 40, maybe it's an hour and 45 minutes.
Feature movie.
Yeah, but just check it out. And if you like it, cool. But I just want to talk about this because I want to figure out why I'm so intrigued by this guy. So I go, hey, did you watch that by chance? She's like, I've watched like 6 of them. So I've watched this one personally, hour and 45 minutes. Man, I can barely sit still here. To just sit here, right? So meaning I'm just always busy and whatever. And if I'm listening to a book, it's because I'm driving or flying or something like that, so I can actually focus. But I've dissected this in my mind at least 2.5 times, and I'll probably go a third time. Like I'm finish it up, just because I'm still trying to kind of look for that. So. For example, and I don't remember because now I've listened to several of his interviews, including one with Matthew McConaughey, who just wrote a book that was fascinating as well. But he's a unique individual, and I think that he stands by his words. He stands for truth, what he believes to be truth. If you, like, for example, when she asked him, "You don't believe in God?" He goes, "I act as if God exists," which is my definition, by the way, of belief. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because I think you said you believe in God. But he wouldn't call himself a Christian. Maybe that's protecting him from both sides. I don't know. Maybe he's just in conflict to figure out what he's going to believe. But then Kate Dalby, Kate, she's kind of one of my go-tos for all things theology and Christian and all that stuff. Jimmy, whatever. She's just, if I want to get going on that, then I call Kate. She goes, hey, and I mentioned it, and she says, have you seen this article with Jordan Peterson? And he goes on with a Christian podcast guy. They start talking back and forth. I think he's a priest. I don't even know what he is. But I wish the guy would have just dug in a little bit deeper. But he's actually like tearing up because he's struggling with that. It's a faith thing, obviously. You see it, and you're just like, brother, what are you fighting? You're already there. But he's struggling, saying, I'm so close. He's like, I've come to the possible. There's 2 conclusions here, and both of them are impossible, but I must believe one. So he's right there on the edge of but in his mind, I believe, he says, I'm terrified of what that means. Meaning a guy that's that analytical, if he steps over that line, he has to change his entire life. I think that's what I got from it. And I'm like, wow. So part of my heart's bleeding for the guy going, brother, man, you're right there. Just to get this guy, I'm begging this guy, just push him a little bit, just ask him a question, whatever. But he's got to do it on his own terms, obviously. So
he believes it so, I don't want to say passionately, but so deeply. For him to get to that point and say yes or no, it is binary. There's no gray area.
Right. This is or it isn't.
It's
kind
all
of thing.
in.
Right. Because he's going to go home and think about this dissect it for 2 weeks, which would be like me dissecting it for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Just going through with so much knowledge. And I appreciate the things it sparked in my mind. Just watching that interview, the things that the synapses or whatever that were firing, just to say like, for example, in another one of his interviews, he talks about raising up boys to be strong and not be emasculated, and you don't raise them like little girls. And then the other person that's one of the people that are on the panel says, well, I believe I should that my boy, it's right to teach your son to cry and show that other side. And he goes, how is that weakness? That's not weakness, that's vulnerability. You're mistaking, don't teach your son to be weak. That is a strength of men to show vulnerability. And I'm like, you just punched me in the face right now. That's awesome. Like but he's thought enough about that to say, don't confuse that. Not only that is know the truth and be able to defend the truth and then be able to assert the truth. We just went through the Constitutional Live last night. And that's what he talks about with the Constitution. He's like, hey, know it. If you don't know it, then you're not going to be able to defend it. You're not going to be able to assert it. You're not even going to know if people are lying to you about it because you don't know enough about it. That's what I see in his speech. He knows enough about it because he spent the time to know it. You're not going to sneak something past this guy.
No.
So I aspire to be that kind of guy within our political arena today, and just things like that all of a sudden, it's just making people come alive. So when you hear this guy talking about the young men in America, in particular, and they attacked him on that. Why is it mostly men? He's like, so what? Like he came up on YouTube, and most of the viewers are male, so it just makes sense that it would be mostly men. And he's a man. Whatever. I believe I have a calling to pursue men's hearts. right? People say, what about women? I'm like, okay, there's nothing wrong with that, and women are invited, but that's not my calling, right? So I totally related with that as well. She talks about tyrannical patriarch. I could care less about that whole thing because if you watch the interview, I think he handles it beautifully. It surprised me that both he and his daughter, I don't know if they regret that deal, but they talk harshly about the GQ interview because he was attacked. In my mind, he should thank them because he did an amazing job and hooked, like I said, 86er, Jason. I sent it, we talk about it, and I said, guys, do me a favor and watch this because I'd like to talk to you about it. Like, we're done with the Bible study. He can't be halfway through it. He hits me and he's like, dude, I'm hooked. Like, already he hits me and was like, I see what you're saying. And I haven't talked to him yet, but he was already texting saying, man,
well,
this is
I know
insane.
you've said things in the past like, know what you believe in, right? So take it into that depth. Yeah, or you'll get pulled in other directions.
Yeah.
You won't be strong enough to defend your beliefs.
Yeah. Even in that Constitutional Live, I was surprised, and Perry saw, we were talking about it afterwards, because I called him to check on something else if he wants to go on Friday to do that shakeout ride up in the mountains. And he was like, do you know how many of those things that they said within this, I mean, this thing's probably 5 years old, I don't even know, the Constitutional Live with David Barton and Rick Grain. Because you know how many things that they said that you've said over the years that have really just resonated through a talk at a church or something? He goes, it's almost like as if you've seen this before. And I go, I'm surprised you picked that up because that's what's been firing off on me. It just means that, I think that God's at work in this, I know he's at work through men, and there's a theme, almost like verbatim sayings that is really kind of cool right now because I'm seeing people drawn to the truth like I've never seen in my life before, like a hunger, you know what I mean, like a calling.
Yeah, you got to find it, especially in these times.
Yeah, and then them using something like this Helen Lewis says something like, "Oh, you're a man that worked in this field, and it's a feminine dominated role typically, and then it hasn't affected you that way. You're lucky." And he's like, "It's not lucky. It's not luck. You don't understand that I actually worked towards this and decided, and I chose happy." And just the way that he handles it is fantastic. The one thing, and just a spoiler alert, because if you're going to watch it, and I highly recommend you check it out, is at the end, and I've spent probably too much time thinking about this, and she asks him, last question, how do you want to be remembered? And kind of, not awkwardly, but he stares at the ground. He looks back up and he goes, someone that was honest. I'm like, it's a perfect answer. That is an unbelievable answer. And for that guy, after you just spend even an hour and 45 minutes watching this interview and just getting to know him, if you will, I think he means that. Like, he wouldn't, if he believed a separate thing, there's no way he could bring himself to say something that wasn't honest. Yep. And that's admirable.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's actually disappointing that it's so rare. You know what I mean? So anyways.
Yeah, that it's uncommon.
That it's uncommon. Like, that should be the most norm. Common thing, and the abnormal thing should be some liar dude. Yep. It's just not the case, unfortunately. So that's the first thing, is the Jordan Peterson and Helen Lewis GQ interview. Google that, it'll pop up immediately. Second thing that you must see, Free Burma Rangers. Have you heard of this?
I just saw an ad for it. I don't know if it was on Amazon or something, but where would I have seen it?
This is it is an Amazon Prime movie, okay, I guess. Okay. Some friends, the Mitchells, Max and Amy, they mentioned this and they're like, hey, have you guys seen this? That's how it starts. Got to check it out. So you already got that, third-party validation, whatever. As a friend of yours says, hey, this is awesome. So this weekend I rented it. Rich started watching it with me. Absolutely blown away. And here's the Reader's Digest version. So the gist of it is, there's a captain, there's an Army Ranger captain. His dad is a missionary. He's talking to these people in Burma, and they say, hey, your son's a soldier. We need help. He calls them and says, hey, can you pray about this? Because this country, the oldest civil war, I think, in the world, is still ongoing, and these people are just getting annihilated, right, by their government. So prays about it, says yes. Actually, he asks his girlfriend, would you marry me and go to Burma? I'm getting called to Burma, and I want to go. Do you want to come with me? She prays about it. God says yes. They take off. They're in the jungle of Burma. And if you remember the Rambo movie, it was the really violent, graphic one. That's it. That's Burma. Myanmar, I think is what they call it now. But anyways, so now he's out there and he's helping these people. Amazing story as it starts. He packs up 4 big backpacks full of medical equipment. He's hiking through the jungle. This guy walks out of the bushes and he's like, hey, like, what are you doing here? Like, kind of, what's up, white dude? What are you doing? He's like,
you're watching.
He's like, God sent me. He's like, okay,
Really?
for what? He's like, well, just to help. I've got some medical supplies. I want to help your people. He's like, wow, do you want to work together and help my country? He's like, sure. Fast forward 25 years, they're like best buddies. He happens to be a medic. They walk over and just start pulling out bullets and healing, just fixing people.
Oh, wow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So here's the crazy part, if that's not crazy enough, is that he's obedient to God. He goes out here. They start having kids. So now you're seeing in Burma, in the jungle, in battlefields, and his kids are with him. So you're seeing mom, dad, 2 girls, little boy, and they're riding horses and they're carrying flags and they're doing this stuff and they're doing like Army Ranger PT with these soldiers. And he says they have, I think he says thousands of aunts and uncles all over the world. So in Burma, in Iraq, all over the place, super inspirational. And what I took from that is, you're not doing enough. I'm like, wow. Like, I don't want to hear anybody complaining about really, it just puts things into perspective. Because then he gets called, so then it starts multiplying, right? He plants a seed and it starts multiplying. They make up T-shirts that said, it's a Ranger. It says Free Burma, so Free Burma Rangers is what they called it. And they just start growing. So they bring people in these camps, they start training them, they start putting them out there. And they're not really, they're armed if they choose to defend themselves. Like if they choose to be armed to defend themselves, then they can arm themselves. But they're really going out and dragging people off in medical. They're relief workers really, but they're right in the thick of it. So they're so successful, they get requests from Iraq. And in Iraq, literally in Mosul, like this horrible, like this insane, these battle scenes where they maneuver their way into Iraq and this, I guess he's a general or whatever he is. He's like, but who are you and how did you get here? You're not supposed to make it this far. Yeah. And he's like, God sent me. It's crazy. It's like Blues Brothers, man, a mission from God. But they're like, what? And then he just drops to his knees, starts praying. And the guy's like, this guy is whatever, crazy guy, whatever, you can go anywhere you want in my country. And he starts going to these battlefields, pulling these dudes out and these kids out, all this stuff. And some of these scenes are, the guy's got my absolute respect because you don't jump out on a thing like that unless it's from God. I don't think. You're either crazy or it's of God. So he'll go out there and praying in Jesus' name, and he's running, pulling people off a battlefield, and there's bullets whizzing over his head. And by all rights, the guy shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable. So in one instance, he goes and saves this little girl. He sees his buddy get shot in the leg. He falls over. One guy gets killed. All this stuff. He calls his wife, hey, meet me at the rally point or whatever. She's like, I'm not. And basically takes this little girl that's been laying there in her mom's, pulls up her mom's dress. Mom's dead. Right next to her. And just kind of covering from the sun for hours. He snatches her, brings back, and the mom's like, hey, I'm not a nurse, but I'm a mom. I know what this little girl needs, and just loves on her. She falls asleep. She's lost everything. But and his kids are not far back. It's insane. So, but yeah, absolutely inspiring. And wow, what there's several instances, and this is just what they caught on film. There's so many. This is their daily life. So absolutely worth watching. Free Burma Rangers. I think it's Amazon Prime, and I rented it. But then my 12-year-old caught a glimpse of it and started asking questions. It's hard because it's real. So they show some photos that are pretty graphic, when you see. We're just not used to that.
War.
Unfortunately, we just saw what happened in Boulder. And I said, there's 2 reasons why this one's not going away quick. Because it's just unfortunate the way when you're in this industry and you're working active shooter training or any kind of preparing people to protect one another, there's about a 2-week window and people drop off, right? It's like, okay, there's a shooting at school. Hey, let's do some stuff and then whatever. Then it's back to work and nobody really cared to do anything anyways, right? The commissioners get all defensive and they don't want to do anymore, right? So there's that. Well, there's 2 reasons I believe why this one's not going to be that way is one, because we've already heard this, by the way, all week, is one, the video. When you see people laying on the ground and it's in Colorado, right up the road, and it's in a community that looks like yours, and and the second thing is it's a grocery store. Yep. So it wasn't some late night, it wasn't a brothel, massage parlor, a bar where I don't go to those places. If it was on Colfax, people are like, oh yeah, because whatever. You can just rationalize all this stuff.
Daylight outside, middle of the day.
And it's the middle of the day. Everybody eats. So we've had many, many, many people say this week, my wife's afraid to go to the grocery store. Now, is it unlikely? Very unlikely. But you saw it. Saw people laying there. It's a real thing, and 10 people didn't go home that night. So it's a big deal, right? So we're just not used to seeing that. They are. that's just the deal. Like all day, every day, they're seeing bodies on the street and all that kind of stuff. So good on them to leave the comforts of what your life is to go aspire to be something like that.
Follow your calling.
And follow your calling and trust God. And then I had to wrap my head around, I'm still not fully, wrap my head around that was your kids with you. Boy, that's a rough one, and I get it. So if you're a missionary right now and you're going, whether it's safe, quote unquote safe, whether it's dangerous or whatever, that's an admirable thing. And I'm glad that we're supporting those kind of folks.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Number 1, Jordan Peterson, Helen, what's her name? Lewis, interview GQ. 2, Free Burma Rangers. Okay, now I'm going to lighten it up a little bit after the intent of the politics and the doom and gloom of dead bodies. Are you familiar with Matt's Off-Road Recovery?
I am not. But now you have me hooked.
So Perry Saul, thanks a lot. You burned up. I should have been sleeping and resting my body because I take my kids in school. I will burn through hours, and typically I'm doing something else, and it's on TV, so I'm knocking out work and I'm watching it. But Matt's Off-Road Recovery, I think they're in Utah, if memory serves, but anyways.
Is this like a YouTube channel?
It's a YouTube channel. Okay. So just click on it and just write off the next, basically the sun's coming up and you're like, great, we got to start this day. And it's really, so if you're out say I was in Moab just recently. If you're out there in the middle of Utah, wherever, and you get stuck in the sand, you bury it to the frame, you call this dude. So it's Matt, and he's got this crew of guys that are just normal guys, and they're going to come out and figure out how to get you out. And there's nothing fancy to it. They're going to hook it. They're called Yankum ropes. It's a company called Yankum.
Yellow kind of thing.
But yeah, so the yellow one I think is Matt's Recovery Rope by Yankum Ropes. Whatever. They got a bunch of different colors and they're different weights. We used to do this. So like in both in the SEAL teams and in GRS, they've got these ropes that are elastic to a point, and then they will launch you out of there. So one driving class that I went to, you're driving over these logs, right? You're on a Land Cruiser or whatever it ends up being. I think that one was a 4Runner. You're driving on these logs, and they go, okay, now fall off. And you're like, what? And you fall off. Right, by choice, and now we got to get each other out. Hook these ropes up. You literally, it's like I said, it's not rocket science. You leave slack in it, you gun it, and then you slingshot this dude right out of the river. It's insane. So, but some of these are close calls. Some of them they lose it. This thing goes over to the side or whatever. A lot of them, but it's people that get themselves in a spot. These men show up and get them out. I'm not sure what's so addictive about it, but if you ever just want to relax and not think about anything,
Well, I know exactly what's addictive about it. The BDR ride last summer where we're off-road for 7 days in the dirt and the rocks.
And we're going out again. So California's in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. And then in 22, we're doing Wyoming. So all that stuff. So something about that whole, really, you do learn. Everything you see, you learn. So it's like, hey, what if we got in a position like that? But I think it is this conflict. These guys just come out, they get called, there's a problem, they fix it. I think there's something very rewarding about that. Like something saying, do I want to do that for a living? I don't. But I would want to do it for a weekend. You know what I mean? It would be kind of cool. People call you. You got to think about this and go, that didn't work last time. Let's try this. And then you pop them out of there, and then they're on their way. Yeah. And it's pretty cool. That's it.
Doing good for somebody else.
Doing good. So, sum them up. Jordan Peterson interview. I talked about GQ interview. Free Burma Rangers. Got to check it out. And then you got to check out YouTube, Matt's Off-Road Recovery. I have no idea if everybody's going to be drawn to these things like I have. Especially, obviously, the first two a little more serious, but it's time to start thinking that way. It's time to start even articulating our words more properly, put a lot more thought into it. Because if you see, and I'm just going to back up to Jordan Peterson for a second, the passion in which he talks about these young men in particular that come from these universities, he only gets about 20 seconds with them because they line up, and all night it's gone, gone. But they share these quick stories and they're off. I remember one of the rules for life in his book is don't lie. And I think it says something, or at least try not to, or something like that, but it's don't lie. He explains why that would dig a hole in all this. And people come up to him and said, what you said really resonated with me, and I stopped lying and turned my life around. Like really, like credibility, all this other stuff. And kind of with tears in his eyes in some of these interviews, he talks about how does it get any better than that? You're just being yourself, being honest, and standing for something. And probably hundreds of people per night are coming up and saying, you changed my life. And then it's a circuit. So he's talking to whatever, 500,000 people a year. I don't even know. Yeah. He was saying 250,000 up to this point in the year, whatever, were just these events after events after events. And he did have some medical issues. So he had autoimmune problem and went off to another country to get some care, and he's making his way back. But I really hope that he continues that, and then I hope that he lets go of that faith issue. I hope that he just really does commit and give his life over to Jesus, because that'd be super cool. And what an amazing guy to have advancing the kingdom, because man, he can do some damage in a good way. So cool. Anything to add, brother?
No,
There's three. We can add a fourth. There's 3 things you must see. Is there a fourth? Anything you saw this week that you're like, you got to check it out?
I can't tell
totally
you
on the
what I saw
spot.
this week. Playing golf with Dad is the best week ever.
Tell me about that real quick. Let's end on that.
Oh, yeah.
Because you told me, because that's something that people should see.
An amazing event where my dad's retired military, and he took a group of golfers, 104 of them, out to Luke Air Force Base. And the golf course is at the end of the runway. So all day, I think we were there 10, 12 hours. We were watching F-16s and F-35s take off, do a climb, circle, touch and go all day.
You said your neck was sore.
My neck, yeah. Dr. Rob, coming to see you Thursday.
Right on, Rob Anderson. What's up?
So, I had a kink in my neck from just constantly watching these. And we were the last group out because, organizing the tournament, doing scorecards, whatever it may be. I don't know how he figured out the timing. And I say that tongue in cheek because I don't think it was on purpose. But we're on the 18th tee box, the last hole. And on a military base at 5 o'clock, I believe it's revelry, kind of close out the day. Revelry. And then they played the national anthem. Everything stops. Cars on the street stops. People in golf carts stop. Take off your hat, put it over your heart. You get a little teary-eyed. Star Spangled Banner's playing, and you're on an Air Force Base. Right down the middle of the fairway comes a pair of F-35s. To the point it hurt your ears. I mean, it just shook your entire body. I'm like, where does this happen? One of the most amazing experiences. And then
awesome.
Today, happy birthday, Dad. Turns 80.
Hey, Bob,
so
happy
we're down
birthday.
there playing golf to celebrate.
Fantastic. That's a must-see. So now we just changed the
F-35s at Luke Air Force
Base. 4
Base.
things you must see. And I told you about that when we were watching a football game.
Army
and Navy,
yeah.
at Navy. Man, that's the way football should happen.
Yep.
So, anyways. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. About out of time. So, we're going to wrap this one up. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at Able Shepherd. Check us out on ableshepherd.com. Check out able-nation.org. Stand in the Gap Initiative. Man, we got so much going on and more amazing stuff coming. So, and then check out the 4 things you must see. You must go play golf at
Luke Air Force Base.
And watch the planes go by, Jordan Peterson, GQ interview, Free Burma Rangers, and then just to lighten things up, Matt's Off-Road Recovery. Check it out. You'll be a better person because of it. All right, guys. Love each and every one of you. Until we see you again, take care of one another.